it to be recorded. So, all right, there you go.
Got that.
Good morning, everyone. Do you want that? I mean, there's nobody's on their camera.
Okay. Oh, I can see it from right there.
Look, it says Renee Lee, but in fact, it's Shauna. Welcome back. Woo!
Well, good morning, everybody. You got me because Trisha's got an appointment. So,
Thank you so much.
yep. So you have Jackie. I know there were some Facebook questions posted, but the person who posted it is not on here yet. So I'd really rather start by giving the attention to those who are here. If anybody else has specific questions, and then from there, we'll go on to the other questions, if that works for everybody. Does that work?
Yes.
Awesome. So what kind of questions do you guys have? And if I can answer, I will. Otherwise, we'll do open and see if any of our other stellar agents can help answer them.
Is there any way you could go through the appraisal addendum, please?
Yeah, I can do that. So let me grab my appraisal addendum. So there's two primary ones that we use here in the office.
Okay.
I'm sorry, was somebody saying something?
No, I just said, okay.
Okay, so there's two primary ones and there's pros and cons to both. Now, do you do primarily listings or buyers?
Buyers right now?
Okay, cool. So that'll end up you will end up eventually making a shift. There's pros and cons to both. So one of your appraisal addendums will say, buyer will say we're gonna do a $200,000 house. Say you are offering $210,000 and your buyer is willing to pay the $10,000 appraisal gap addendum. Are we all on the same page so far?
Yes.
Okay, so that being said, say the house comes in at 190. How much will your client have to bring to closing if all parties agree?
So if we put 190, you said?
No, the house is on the market for 200.
Okay.
You offer 210. Your appraisal gap comes in. The appraisal comes in at 190. How much would your client have to pay?
Oh, I'm not sure. That's what I was getting confused with the appraisal gap.
Okay, cool. So the appraisal gap addendum is saying your client will pay $10,000 above appraised value, not to exceed offer price. So if the house was listed at 200, but the appraisal came and your offer was 210, but the appraisal only came in at 190, your client is going to bring 200 because you're only willing to pay 10,000 over the appraisal amount. But if say the appraisal came in at 208, your client would only have to bring 210 because it's not to exceed purchase price. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So for example, if we did an offer, like as you say, 200,000, they didn't want to do any appraisal gap, and we offer 200,000. Do I still have to do the addendum, or I don't have to do anything on that?
No, if you are not willing to pay anything over,
Okay.
You do not. Now,
Okay.
will your offer look as strong? Probably not in our current market.
Right.
But I did a cross sale with Sharonda. My clients literally offered purchase price. We were the only offer. We got it. We were done.
Okay. Okay.
So
So the only time I need to do the appraisal addendum is if my client wants to, if they want to go over, say it comes back less, and then they want to pay the difference. That's the only time I would need to do that.
no, it's the appraisal gap addendum is only done during the time of the offer. It's not an after the fact.
Yeah, no, at the offer, when I'm doing the offer, if my client say then they don't want to do anything over, they just whatever they offer, that's all they want to do. So at that time, I don't have to do anything in the offer with an appraisal.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, here's the one thing to look at when you're doing your appraisal gap addendum. There's two.
Okay.
There is one that says,
Mhm.
if, basically if everything does not pan out, say the seller is now counting on that 220,000, but even with the appraisal gap, they only get 200,000. And
Right.
the seller wants to say, nope, I'm not getting my price. There's one addendum that says the buyer gets their due diligence and earnest money back, which is the one that protects your buyer.
Right. Okay.
Or there's one that says the seller gets to keep it. Now, there's
Oh,
two different ways of thinking about that. You want to
Okay.
protect your buyer's money, but if you have a seller's agent who knows what they're reading, they're going to say, hey, this doesn't protect you at all, which maybe
Yes.
the entire purpose of what due diligence money is.
Yeah.
So is it really protecting your client because it's not making their offer as strong? So
Right.
is it likely to get accepted? Probably not. But I hate to say it, a lot of times you can count on sellers agents not understanding what they're reading.
Okay.
So you
I
could
try that addendum every time, especially because we're representing our buyers. So if a seller's agent doesn't catch it, that's not my problem.
Okay.
Exactly. Now that's why it's really good to know who your cross-sale agents are. Ask seasoned agents, have you worked with this person? Do you know if they know what they're doing? What are your thoughts on it? It's not to manipulate a situation, it's to represent your buyer.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Does anybody else have questions or anything to add to that? Nope. Okay. Anybody else with a question?
Jackie, I'm just going to add buyer's agents. That's why you guys need to be doing CMAs. Because you can do a gap addendum even if you're just offering the asking price.
Very good point, Shauna. That's really true. So yeah, especially in our market right now, for whatever reason, I'm finding that a lot of listing agents aren't even really doing CMAs. They're just putting the house on the market for whatever the seller wants. Or they don't know how to price a house. And yes, even houses at asking price sometimes are coming in Tidewater. If you don't know what the term Tidewater means, it's traditionally labeled to a VA or FHA loan, but it basically doesn't meet value is what it means. So Shauna's right. Whether you represent the buyer or the seller, do a freaking CMA. That's part of your job. If you break down how much money we make per hour per transaction, you're getting paid a few $100s an hour. Put an hour in and do a CMA.
And honestly, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Honestly, doing that CMA for your buyer, it doesn't have to be as elaborate. I see a lot of agents feeling like they have to do this like line item, just run one, see where your house lands, and then if you do Tidewater, it's not just, oh, well, the seller has to lower the price now, or it's, if you've got comps to help that seller's agent out to get to value, then the level of success that you're going to reach, if they can raise it even a little bit, it's going to help your buyer and your seller, because your buyer was willing to pay what you're under contract for. So do that CMA and help that listing agent out if you can, because as a listing agent, when you get Tidewater, it's not a great feeling. So to have a cross-sell agent that's willing to help out and say, hey, I ran comps also, is, that can make or break a deal.
Very true.
So I have a question. So, as you said, a CMA, if I'm doing an offer, what I did usually, I'll just look at the soul in the area that the house is. But you're saying just do a CMA also before we do the offer. Like, I'll tell my buyer this is what couple homes sold for in the market in the 3-month period. So is that okay, or?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, you can do that. Absolutely. Is it better to have something in writing? One, it helps your muscle memory so you can intelligently speak about your property. But two, I had a house that I had put on the market and it fell through for whatever reason, so I reran the numbers. And in 2 months, the house increased by $10,000. So the way our market's going right now, I think 3 months is even a little bit too long personally. What
Okay.
does everybody else think about that?
It's sometimes house specific and neighborhood specific, but I have seen that where if you go back, to 4 months, you'll see 250, and then you look at the most recent sales in the last like 2 months, and it's 275, and you're like, okay, so it's getting very confusing. It's getting very dicey with pricing, but if you can do the most recent, that's going to be the most accurate because the market is going up so rapidly.
Okay.
And just be prepared. This is totally a side note that has nothing to do with contracts. Because it's going up so rapidly, eventually it's going to fall. So make sure to be saving the extra money that you're making right now to help when things slow down a little bit. It's not to be a Debbie Downer, but if you look at the trends of the real estate market in the last like 30 years, what goes up comes down. Thankfully, we're in a market that doesn't drop as badly as say California may, but you're going to have to know how to hustle a little more when things slow down.
I agree. We'll always be blessed with, Fort Bragg and the coming and going of our soldiers. So, the housing market won't ever grind to a halt, knock on wood, but it does get slow. So last January, it was pretty, I feel like it was pretty slow for me. It was the last few Januaries, I've sold 0 or 1 home. So, put your money away while it's good.
Thank you.
What other questions do we have?
So I wanted to touch bases with experts about when a buyer, so I have a scenario and I have I have the seller and the buyers are basically terminating, but they refuse to terminate because they want their money back and it's just a whole mess. But the long story short of it is, my question is basically, at what point are they breach of contract? And the reason I ask that is because obviously our closing date is supposed to be December 28th. So they're going to wait that out. But then there is the
7-day grace period.
7-day window. But the verbiage in the contract says as long as all parties are moving towards the closing table. And at this point, they haven't done the inspections that are lender required and things like that.
Okay, so what do you mean by required inspections?
So they are a VA and their appraisal came in. They did do an appraisal, but they haven't done any inspections, which granted they don't have to, except for the home is on a well. So they're required via that appraisal that was released to all parties, not the actual appraisal, but the conditions were released to myself and their agent that they have to have a well test. And what is it, the 23rd right now? And it's crickets. They're not moving towards the closing table in that
Did they do a WDIR?
Nope. They didn't do that one either. They haven't done anything. They were basically, it's a unique story. They were basically going back and forth because there is a pergola on the property that encroaches on the neighbors. We got an easement. It's recorded with the Register of Deeds that gives this buyer the pergola, all rights to it, forever and ever, amen. And a couple weeks into the transaction, they are starting to change their mind on it. Like, oh, we don't know, we don't like it. Like, we want, and then started asking for like ridiculous requests, like for us to move it, rebuild it, give them $15,000 it's just crazy. So of course my sellers are like, no, that's not the agreement. We're not doing that. So they kind of just stopped dead in their tracks, but we are still under contract. So
This one, it kind of sounds like you're gonna have to take it to Trisha and to legal. I did see your question ahead of time.
Right.
You know, I went over it some with Trisha just to make sure I'm not speaking out of my butt.
Right.
But
Don't do that.
basically, it's really hard for the seller to terminate. If the seller terminates, one, they are legally obligated to reimburse the buyers for all expenses, their due diligence, their earnest money, their appraisal money, their inspection
If
money,
they terminate early.
if they terminate.
Well,
But
not if the seller or not if the buyer goes outside of their closing date and is breach of contract.
right, but then it may go up into the interpretation of what is considered moving forward. I think you have a very good argument in the fact that they have not done what the loan requirements even are. So will you be able to do it? Yes. Are you probably gonna have to get this dragged out for a whole nother mortgage payment? Probably.
Right.
But if it were me, I would contact legal at the commission right away and give them the entire status, and I would run it through Trisha. It sounds like you have a good argument.
Right.
And hopefully that what's gonna happen, I would say initially, is I'll say Trisha's probably gonna call legal at the commission, and then she's probably gonna call the broker in charge. Tell me it's not a cross-sale agent within our office, right?
No, absolutely not. It is, not. It's a small brokerage that doesn't have a whole lot of support, and it is showing. So, I feel like I've been more of a support to this agent than her broker, which is unfortunate. But yeah, so I mean, worst case scenario, we just wait through that 7 days, and then if you haven't gotten all your stuff done, then they'd be technically breach. I would just like to.
I'd make sure to get the proper forms out and all that. Shauna might have better insight. I believe she's kind of been through this scenario, if I remember right. Maybe I'm wrong. But I would just make sure and get with Trisha and see if there's any forms that you need, demand letters, anything like that you need to procure that needs to be within a certain timeline.
Gotcha.
So that if it's prior to those 7 days, you can get it in prior to those 7 days. So you're not 14 days back now.
Right.
Does anybody else have insight into this? Sounds like I'm your only voice right now, Amelia. Oh, we can't hear you. I see you talking, but I can't hear you, Amelia. We can't hear you. All right, I'm gonna text her. Amelia, you there? Okay. Can you hear us, Amelia? Yeah, we can't hear you either.
Jackie, I'm just gonna say,
Cool.
I think they're gonna have to wait just because the buyers could always say they're having a hard time because of the holidays. They couldn't get somebody out, so they're gonna have to wait those 7 days past the contract.
Good point.
Because just because they haven't been done doesn't mean that, quote, they haven't tried to get them done.
Yeah, I would think within like a 30-day period, you should be able to get a WDIR done. Because they haven't even gone as far as that. The well test makes sense, but WDIR seems kind of crazy. But I think you're right. It's the argument they can provide.
Yeah. But that's just it. They could say that they were waiting for the appraisal to come back before they did the WDIR or something like that. So I think they're going to have to wait for that because they could use the holidays as a excuse.
That's a really good point.
Because you always got to think about what would the commission say? You know, the commission's is there to protect the clients. And so what would they say? And
True.
because of the holidays, that's going to give just about anybody an excuse, even if it's true or not.
Yes, that's true. I think that's a good point. It's just like COVID, everybody wants to use it as an excuse for everything. COVID and holidays, life gets to stop. Cool, cool. What else does everybody have? I am gonna have to stop this at 11:45 just because I have a noon appointment and I'm really sorry. We just still wanted to get this in. But we still have plenty of time. It's only 11:23. Does anybody else have any things they want to review or questions, anything like that?
I have a question.
Sure.
It has a holiday excuse in it, y'all.
Cool.
So I have the buyers and they went under contract on Thursday. And when we went to the property, of course, the utilities weren't on. So I did reach out to the listing agent and ask were they going to turn them on so we can do the due diligence. And he said they would be on. So no problem. You know, the clients did a due diligence amount. Monday we had for the inspector to come out to do the the process, and the power wasn't on. So then he came back out on Tuesday and the electrical part was on, but the water wasn't on. So he said he wasn't going to do it. And he called today. He was like, hey, I'll come out today, because after today, he can't come back out. I think he said until like the 29th. So I called the agent and was like, hey, he's able to come today. Did you get the water on? And now the agent's like, no, the water's still not on. So reached out to my clients to update them. And now they're like, no, we want to cancel and we want our due diligence back. So I don't know if that falls under, I know technically the time frame is not over because their due diligence period is the 29th. But I know the inspector said he cannot come back out until the 29th. So do they even have a fighting chance under the seller's obligation that, the utilities were not on for them to do their, due diligence? Or
Getting your due diligence money back is very difficult and somebody else is welcome to chime in. Their earnest money, yeah, they could totally get it back if they did any earnest money. But what I would suggest doing, if your clients are still interested in this house, I would just extend your due diligence date so that you can get your inspections done in a timely manner.
So now now my clients are being difficult. And, I know, of course, we have to go through the process of trying to get them to understand everything. But they're not wanting to, understand that. So they're like, no, everything is sounding so unprofessional. You know how they say we get the signs that maybe this is not the right thing to do. So now they're like really wanting to cancel and, fight for due diligence. So that's why I was trying to see is there any way, and it's a cash deal and they have closing tentatively scheduled for the 5th because it's a cash purchase. So what if they don't want to even try to extend anything? So basically it's just, because of the policy, and I told them about the due diligence and non-refundable, that we do have the option to extend it. So if they don't take the option, they just basically don't get the due diligence, right?
Yeah, unless somebody else has something to see, that due diligence money's gone. But yes, the sellers are in breach. So do you have a fighting chance? Yes, you do, but due diligence is very difficult to get back. How much due diligence money was there?
It was just $1,000. And I was doing it. I read an article on the commission site when I was trying to research, and I just realized you had contracting class. So it was perfect. And it did say that was like one of the reasons. It was like seller's obligation in paragraph 8, and it was like paragraph 12 for risk of loss, and then also about the disclosures, the residential and the mineral oils. But I didn't know to what extent, it would be. But under the paragraph 8, it does say that the utilities are supposed to be on for them to be able to, provide the,
So I would
provide
think, sorry, this is Heather. I would think that the seller did sign this stating that they knew that utilities and things were to be on. And so if they aren't doing that, I do think that if you wanted to argue it hard enough, that there would be the ability for you to get that due diligence money back. I wasn't,
you could, it would just
I had
be
a
very
seller that was not doing what they were supposed to do as far as that goes as well. And we reached out and I was able to let them know that, hey, commission says that if you don't get this done, then you have to give that due diligence money back.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there's a demand letter for it too, so
Mhm.
definitely look into that.
Okay, awesome. Thank y'all.
Heather, I saw on our Facebook page that you were talking about the response to seller. Did you get your answer on that? Do you want to review that with people? I did discuss that with Trisha as well.
That's perfect. Okay, so I kind of heard half of what you said, but were you referencing the thing that I had posted in the Facebook group?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I guess I wanted to ask this question. I talked to Trisha, and I don't know if she had a chance to get back to the commission on this one, but I also wanted to kind of put it out there for everybody because it was a situation that happened to me. So I had a buyer that wrote an offer, and the listing agent sends back a buyer response to offer. Then at that point, my buyers are feeling like that because it says it's rejected. So my buyers were like, well, you know, fine, we're going to start talking crap about the house because we didn't get it. And, you know, that's the way that buyers are going to make themselves, they justify, okay, I'm not getting the house to make themselves feel better. A couple days later, a listing agent comes back and says, well, great. So my sellers want to accept your buyer's offer. And so I will get it signed and sent over to you. And I was like, whoa, hold on now. You've rejected our offer. So thoughts with everybody in that aspect. So communication was sent for an offer, and then communication was sent back with a rejection. If that seller signs the offer, are we under contract?
I would say no, because the seller sent you proof and it has a date on it that the contract says we hereby reject your offer, but would favorably consider a new contract with the following options A, B, and C.
Gotcha.
Now, I think if all parties wanted to pretend that did not exist and move forward, they could. But if the buyers no longer want to purchase the house, they have it in writing that it was rejected and then you move forward. I don't think they would be under any obligation to pay due diligence or earnest money.
So I agree with you. And one of the reasons that I did want to bring it to this forum was so that in the instance, because there's numerous people who say that you should use the response to buyer's offer. And so I just wanted to bring it out so that there's pros and cons of that document.
True.
That, it definitely, it's not a counteroffer. And it does ensure that there's communication between both parties. So just to be careful if anyone is considering to use it, that it may put you in a position where if you are the listing agent, that you might have messed up a chance for your sellers, because apparently nobody else responded to it as to what they favorably would have considered. And then so they came back to our offer, which was apparently the best. And it actually took my buyers to come over to the house and rewalk the house before they were ready to sign it, because they were like, well, we've already spent a weekend talking ourselves out of it.
Right.
So,
and really North Carolina doesn't have any counter offer forms.
Right.
We're
There's
not a
counter offer
counteroffer
form.
state.
Right. So that was just one that happened to me recently that, I know a lot of people say use the buyer's response to offer, or the response to buyer's offer. So I just wanted to put that out there, that if you are the listing agent and you are utilizing that, just to be careful, because it's a good document, but it can also bite you.
Great point. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks. And just as a side note, I'm actually in the house with the inspector and the buyers of the house that received it. So we're good. We moved forward.
Yay, congratulations.
Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions or anything they want to review? Okay, well, so it looks like we're gonna hit some cold weather. If you have any vacant listings, check the heater. Make sure your heaters are, I'd say at least 60, 65 in the house. Talk to your sellers, see if they're good with you leaving any dripping faucets on. And make sure to check out the houses during the holiday season when there's freeze. Because it sucks to walk into a house and all of a sudden pipes have burst because they've frozen. Also talk to your clients who have sprinkler systems and ensure that they have winterized their sprinkler systems so they don't have any bursts or anything there too. I know that has nothing to do with contracts. It just popped in my brain. Sorry. What else we got? All right, well, if nobody has anything, we can call this a day. If anybody does, stay on for a few more minutes and see if anybody's just conjuring up some courage to talk. Just let me know what you want to do. All right, guys. Anybody needs anything, you are welcome to call my cell. My number is 910-391-2552. There's a great support system here of all kinds of people who knows contracts or can help with just about anything. We're a big old KW group that likes to help each other. So if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to any of the leadership, the ALC, or existing agents who have a little bit of experience behind their belt. And we will talk to everybody soon. If I don't get to see everybody ahead of time, Merry Christmas. And I hope you all are doing good.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.